fan of Reddit who proposed, and she said no. What happened afterwards with your life? Story 1, she said yes on the second proposal, and now we're divorced. Edit Reddit is such a weird place. All the carefully thought-out posts and comments get zero recognition, and then this random off-the-cuff remark is my most liked comment. Glad you all got a kick out of it. For those wondering, I've been single for a year. I spent last night with a smart, beautiful woman and had a blast. Life is good. Second edit, thanks mods. My life is now complete, and I could die knowing I made a difference. Story 2, we were living together. I asked. She said, no, I love you, but I need to think about it. I don't think I'm ready yet. Can you give me some time and ask later? A few months go by. I ask again, same response. A few more months, same deal. A couple more weeks, and then she says, hey, what do you think of us getting married? I replied, that's an excellent idea. Why didn't I think of that? Our 39th anniversary is next month. Story 3, she had said she wasn't really a fan of marriage, so I thought proposing non-marriage might be well received, and I wanted us to be together for the rest of our lives, so asked her not to marry me. She said no. We have been married for 10 years. Story 4, dated a woman for over 2 years and popped the question. First time she said, I don't know. A couple months later, I asked her again. She said maybe I was pretty bent out of shape, but then I found out she was sleeping with several of my friends, so I dodged a bullet there really. Story 5, we lived together for another 6 years until she changed her mind and told me that I should ask again. We were engaged for over a year and got married in 1991. We are still married, have 3 children, and are both still very much in love. Story 6, it was really, really bad for a while. Then it was really bad. Then it became really bad. Then it became bad. Then it was just blah. Then it was neutral. Then things started to get better. They continued to get better by me learning to be happy and me doing me things. I eventually found someone else, and things have been getting better for 20 years now. Story 7, I asked her right out of high school, but she wasn't ready. We stayed together, went to college at the same school, spent the first year in separate dorms, then moved in together, got married a few years later. Our 20th is coming up. Story 8, she said, yes, as I had a special occasion planned. One of those observation wheels, and I proposed at the very top, and we were in our way to a family event, and I had a ring made and everything. Then a few days later, she said no. Everything fell apart. I was distraught. We continued dating for a while, but it was long distance, other side of the world. When I visited, it would be super awkward. Eventually, Dad kicked me out, was flying standby, and was stuck in an airport for 4 days. Took me years to recover. Now, I'm happily married, and I'm glad it never worked out. I was not in a good place when I met her, and her family were super controlling. It would never have worked. The woman I married is super cool, and is my best friend. Turned out better than expected. Story 9, she had cancer. I said we should get married because I had full medical coverage from my work. She said no, and over time we grew apart. Haven't talked to her in 15 years. Don't know if she died. Story 10, my mother turned my father down, but didn't outright break up with him. She just wasn't sure about the marriage idea. She valued her independence and was nervous about commitment. No hard feelings, though. He called up the next day when Shed had more time to think about it, and she said yes after all. They celebrated 32 years of marriage last month. Story 11, very first girlfriend ever. Started dating at 17. After 6 years of dating, I proposed. She said, no, I'm sorry. I asked why. She said, I've been thinking about this for a while, but didn't talk to you about it. I found someone else. Then she broke up with me right then and there. I asked if she cheated, and she said no. We're just friends right now, but he makes me happy when I'm with him, and you just don't. You used to, but not anymore. I tried sabotaging the relationship when I found him begging her for nudes, tattled to her ultra-Christian parents that he was twice her age, which he is, and did everything I could to be the insane one. Finally realized what I was doing, apologized, promised to never talk to her or her family ever again. I sold the ring and used the money to buy a guitar and a boatload of weed and spiraled out of control for 3 years. Flunked all my classes, got a dead-end job at a construction gig, slowly descended into borderline alcoholism. Couldn't leave the house or go to work or do my job without being high. Gained a ton of weight. Let myself go. Finally contemplated suicide. Planned it out with a 20-page instruction manual on how to make it painless, not screw it up, and not hurt anyone in the process. Never went through with it because I kept getting scared and spending my suicide fund on weed and alcohol. Finally broke down and told my parents all of this. Asked for help. Spent another year in a rehab program with a therapist. Got out and have been clean for 3 years by this September and still wake up at 3 a.m. feeling sick every couple of months for the way I treated her after having spent 6 years telling her that I loved her, but that's all over now, and all I could do is learn from it, promise to be better, and keep going. So now I'm turning 29 in a week, still living at home with parents, and constantly battling self-loathing and anxiety while working a job for $9.25 an hour, but I pay my parents $300 a month to stay with them, and I'm going back to school. taking the minimum number of credit hours per semester since I'm paying for it out of pocket, and I work full-time and overtime when I can get it, but slowly drag my GPA from a 1.28 to a 2.64, and can start getting help next semester instead of paying for all of it out of pocket. Now, I also lost a ton of weight during the pandemic and weigh just 189 now. In rehab, I dropped to 220, but I was closer to 245 to 250 before that. Safe to say, I won't be worth dating for a long time, but maybe when I get my degree under my belt and finish growing and learning, I can get a self-sustaining job. I can move out and truly start over. Edit, hey guys, I'm getting a swath of PMs asking what the number one thing was that helped me through that time, and I'm saying, without a single doubt, that rock did it, and going to concerts. This song by my all-time favorite band, the Flatliners, was my wake-up song, and best bud song, Girlfriend, helped me realize that if I wanted to try and make my own music, it can be short and punchy as long as it's from the heart. Story 12, I was the person who said no. We had only known each other for 3 months, and he was smitten. I was more cautious. I said, no, I like you, but it's way too soon. He asked when would be enough time. I said maybe a year. He proposed again at midnight, 1 year after we first met. I said yes, and we have been together 8 years now. Edit, I know a year was still not a long time, but we had a long engagement and didn't get married for another 5 years. Story 13, this is the story of my parents. My dad asked my mom to marry him several times. She said no, several times. One day my dad asked my mom to marry him yet again. She said yes. He freaked out and left her apartment and dumped her. 3 weeks later, he hated his life without her and begged her to take him back and marry him. They were married 9 months later for 16 years until my mom passed from cancer. They loved each other so much and had such a deep appreciation for each other. That was 25 years ago. My dad has not remarried. No one will ever come close to my mama. Story 14, my mom rejected my father the first 2 times. There was no real hard feelings between them. I guess my mother was just not ready for marriage yet. She ended up proposing to him. My grandmother and mother sewed a suit for their dog to wear and attached a sign around his neck with a ring that read, "Will you marry me?" Then she sent the dog out into the kitchen to beg for scraps while my father was preparing dinner. The next thing she heard was a very concerned voice shouting, "Honey, the dog is asking me to marry him." Cue absolute hysterics. My dad said yes to the proposal. My human dad and my human mom are still married 2 decades later. The fact that I even had to clarify this is severely disappointing. TSK, TSK, TSK. Edit, when my parents found the photo, they were just getting it sent, so stay tuned, and I will post the pet tax edit to my God. You guys are more impatient than kids in ice cream truck. Here's your pet tax. Ha. Edit, $3 savage. Give the old good boy a break. Edit 4, I find it humorous that my photo has more views than this thread has upvotes. So, I guess I just want to say hello to all the lurkers out there. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, day, evening, night. I swear not try to be passive-aggressive, just realize that it could come across that way. Story 15, my dad proposed to a woman who said no. My dad was a violent alcoholic, and she said she couldn't be with him unless he got clean. Took him a little while, but he did it. He wound up meeting my mom through a matchmaker, and they've been married 25 years. If that woman never said no to him, he never would have gotten clean. It was the lowest point in his life, but it all brought him to my mom, who makes him happier than ever. My dad talks to her sometimes. She got married to someone else, and they had a son who died from a medical condition. Story 16. So this actor, Patrick Moot, proposes to his girlfriend at a basketball game and gets turned down while on a giant jumbotron. Clip goes on YouTube, etc., etc. She tells him later that she turned him down because she thinks his is too small. So he travels around the world, documenting what other cultures think about penis size and penis enlargement, and made a movie about it called Unhung Hero. I've never watched it, but the title alone makes me laugh. Story 17, my mom actually said no to my dad's proposal when they were younger, not because they weren't in love, but because she wasn't sure if it was something she actually wanted to do, rather than something that society expected of her, or whatever. They still stayed together and had kids, hence why you're reading this now. And then when my dad was terminally ill a few years ago, my mom plucked up the courage and asked him just to get her back after all those years. He said no. Before taking her up on the offer a few days later, he died a happy man. Edit, holy. I uploaded this before bed and haven't been on Reddit since. Just flicked it on to see all of your lovely responses. Really does mean the world to hear people taking some joy from their story. Thanks so much. For a bit more context on this, it was actually 2 declined proposals, not just 1. Both pre-children too. So let's say I'm lucky. Also, when they did get married, it wasn't purely an action for the estate or whatever. They already had wills, etc. sorted. It was just one of those last great days as a family. In fact, my sister and I were the only 2 present at the registry office. And when I say office, they literally squeezed us into one of the registrar's offices. as there was a big waiting list for weddings, and we didn't know how long he had. He died 3 months later, so we were all hugely grateful for them for helping us out like that. Story 18, I was a young Marine. I was only home during the weekends, was dating this girl for about a year from my hometown. When I asked, she said yes. Her dad, former Navy, kept saying we should wait. We put it off for a bit longer. Fast forward another year. She dumped me. Father informs me she's been sleeping with a lot of guys, like more than 50 over the 2 years we dated, and was very happy I didn't marry her, and apologizes to me for her behavior. She then totally ghosting everyone, including her family, for about 6 months. Find out she moved 7 hours away and was living under a house, not a basement, under a house with her new. She calls her mom to come get her. Mother and father asked me to go get her and bring her home. Good times, good times. Story 19, not sure if this count, but I proposed. She said yes, but 1 month before the wedding, she took it back. This is what happened immediately with my life. I personally lost about $3,000 worth of deposits. My parents and her parents lost about $4,000 each on deposits. Me and my parents are working class, so it took years for us to financially recover from this. I spent $2,200 on a ring I didn't want. My biggest regret, and will say this, anyone who listens, the engagement ring chain, I bought it from, wouldn't take it back. I took it to pawn shops, and they'd only offer a few hundred. This engagement ring store, bank on customers who wants the whole ring stone band setting. If you're going to buy a ring, just buy the stone of gold band setting. You can get a better deal from a local jewelry store. Apparently my gem I bought was, most of the cost of the ring was BS. Most of my family was from out of state, and a lot of people were pissed because they canceled their flight. I had to go to the ER, so I didn't leave my room. I couldn't take any calls because everyone was pissed, and I didn't want to hear it. I was depressed and just stayed in bed. One day, my roommate grabbed me and took me to the ER, where the doctor treated me for severe dehydration and an infection. What happened when I got over it? I became stronger for it. I didn't propose to anyone until a decade later. Honestly, there wasn't anyone that I didn't love deeply enough to be in a committed relationship. But when I proposed, I was in my 30s. Our relationship was more mature than my first time I proposed. We're now married for 13 years. She's my best friend. When I have good news, she's the first person I want to tell it to. When I have bad news, she's the first person I want to tell it to. I financially recovered as well. I learned my lesson about the engagement ring. Only paid $300 for it. She loved it and treasures it. After our 10-year milestone, we were doing so well. I told her to pick a wedding ring of any cost. She refused. She still wears that cheap $300 ring and loves it. Story 20. I spoke to her about it beforehand, and she seemed really keen on the idea. So I decided to propose about a week after in front of all our friends. She was so shocked. She picked me up off my knee and shooed me away. Most of our friends were confused because everyone knew it was going to happen, and she said she was excited for it. I didn't know what to do. It was all really embarrassing, and later she explained she didn't mean no. She just didn't know what to say and was scared. She said yes after apologizing profusely, and just this year we celebrated our 9th anniversary. I'm happy that this comment blew up, but I feel like the next time I tell someone it as an icebreaker, they're going to say I read this on Reddit. Story 21. In 2017, Google came up with this idea to allow you to make photo books out of your Google Photos account. My girlfriend and I have been dating for almost 2 years, and I knew she was the one I wanted to marry. So I created this wonderful photo book of all of our selfies together and ended it with a page made out of photo I generated that said, "Will you marry me?" I then proceeded to put all these things into an album and build the photo book. What didn't occur to me at the time was that the album I put these in was a shared album, and the other person gets a notification when you add new photos to it. And the other person that the album was shared with, my girlfriend, that evening, we had dinner and it all came out. She saw the photo. She wasn't ready. There were a few reasons why, but they were good reasons and smart reasons, mostly to do with timing, family, and finances. We weren't breaking up. We just weren't getting engaged at that time. A year later, we have fully discussed the concept of getting married. We went ring shopping. She picked her own ring, and by the time I actually did propose, we both knew what her answer would be. We celebrated our first wedding anniversary in April. It seems to have worked out so far, and the photo book is on a shelf to my left as we speak. Story 22, we received a letter from the immigration office saying that she was lacking some documents. At the moment, we were stressed, both of us, with work and study, and none of us were sufficiently fluent in German to decipher this kind of language. We went to the university office for foreign students. The lady in charge translated to us the letter badly, telling us that even presenting the documents, they would proceed with the deportation process. We panicked, looking for some more help. We ended in the city hall. With the adrenaline rush, I proposed to her in quite a loud voice. If we get married, could we stop the deportation? I asked to the poor guy in the information office. I can't remember if he gave us an answer. I want to marry her. Will you marry me? She started laughing. I started laughing. The guy in the office gave us the telephone to the pertinent department and asked us to call. We went out of the city hall, and we couldn't stop laughing. She said to me, "Well, thank you, but let's wait a bit." After the weekend, we went to immigration office, and the people there explained which documents were missing, how to get them. She wasn't denied the visa, and we kept living in the way we planned. It was intense, and in retrospective, really funny addendum. We're not married and never planned, but we live together. She got a job that provides her with a visa. Soon she will present herself to citizenship exam. Story 23. My mom told my dad no when he proposed to her, even though they were already living together. She thought he was impotent, and it wasn't until she got pregnant that she said yes. In retrospect, I wish my parents had decided early in their relationship that they can barely stand each other. Story 24. Oh, I have a story about this. My friend had been with his girlfriend B for years, so he decided he wanted to propose. What he didn't know is that B was also thinking about proposing to him. It proposed first, and B freaked out because she had already set her proposal and bought a ring. So she said no. Over the next week, B freaked out more and more and refused to answer his calls and messages. I then decided to use the money he had saved up to buy a plane ticket to Europe. What was supposed to be a 3-month trip through Western Europe turned out to be a year-long trip around the world. One day, he says that he's coming back, and B decides to go and wait for him at the airport and propose to him there. It turns out that while being in Peru, they met a girl, and they fell in love almost immediately and got married in Peru. 5 years later, A and his Peruvian wife are still happily married and recently had a baby, while B hasn't still quite forgiven herself for ruining her relationship with A. Story 25. Not my story, but someone I'm friends with. They both had shitty homes and became a couple at 14. Somewhere around 20, he proposed to her. She said she wasn't ready to commit yet. After that, had proposed to her every year partially in hopes she would be ready, but it was also kind of a ritual where he would show her that he's still serious. She would say no every time. In their late 20s, he was done with his studies. She could see the finish line, so she told him she's ready, meaning marriage and eventually children. That's when he gets second thoughts about marrying the only woman he ever had a relationship with, and he wasn't sure if he was making a mistake. They went on a break. She went to the U.S. from Europe to do her Ph.D. at the MIT. They drifted apart more. She moved on and found a new long-term relationship with a partner that's a lot better for her, while he quickly regretted ending the relationship and started whoever he could find on Tinder without being able to form a meaningful relationship after. Story 26. We'd been dating for a year and a half, and I was due to move out on orders, was in the Army. She suggests we get married. I said no way. I was going off to school Army type for 6 months, then a year on a deployment to the Middle East. It just wouldn't work. She was calm, and then said, "You think it'll be a burden to all of that, but it'll actually be a help." While just seconds earlier all I could think of was what a pain and it would be to get married and leave. And now it, for whatever reason, seemed perfectly reasonable that she was right. We got married a week later at the courthouse. I was 22. Last month, we had a nice, socially distant dinner party for our 29th anniversary with our 2 amazing kids and a few friends. Story 27. We met in her home country of Germany while I was traveling. I knew I was in love. We dated long distance for a while. Me flying to Europe, her flying to the U.S. I suggested marriage so we could be together. She said no a few times. I didn't press, but I was patient and not being pushy. I knew she was worth the wait. Then it hit her that's how we could be together. If we got married, we could live in a country together. The difficulties of being born on a different patch of dirt. A few years later, I'm still married to my best friend and living with her in Germany. Not all no, stay no, life goes on. Story 28. About 2 years later, I met my wife of 22 years. We are happily married. The one who said no got married for the first time last year and seems happy. My wife is way into me in ways that the former girlfriend never was. And I see my life as far happier with my wife than I ever was with the one who said no. She's not a bad person. I was just young and in love with someone who wasn't in love with me. It worked out for the best. I'm glad she said no. Story 29. Dim sum, but especially chung fan. It's my favorite dim sum dish. It's just shrimp wrapped in rice noodle with a sweet dipping sauce. But oh my God, is it delicious. Dim sum is generally pretty inexpensive, and there's so many dumpling options to choose from. Story 30. My mother told my father no 3 times. On the 3rd time, he got wasted at a local bar and basically started pouring his heart out to anyone who'd listen. Mind you, it's a very small village in the Italian Alps, and my father barely spoke Italian, and no one in the village spoke English, including my mother. Word got back to my mom about this sad American at the bar, so she went to find him, and she told him she'd marry him. My parents celebrated their 44th anniversary last month. Story 31. Not me, but a guy I knew proposed to his then-girlfriend in a restaurant. Made sure to have a friend record it. She walked out when he popped the question and pretty much ghosted him. He started drinking, found a new passion in gambling, and gambled all his savings away. He ended up living on money of the state, works a garbage picker job now, and almost set his house on fire at least 4 times that I know of by making food and falling asleep drunk. He was an interesting guy, friendly to some, but the state he's in is just sad. Hope at some point he picks up his life again. Haven't heard of him in years, though, so no idea where he is now. Story 32, we actually got married, moved in together. 2 weeks later, she moves out, blocks me everywhere, and never gave me a reason. Shortly after I was served with papers. Now I'm divorced. That was last summer, and not sure where I am now. Making work my main priority for now. I just want to know why for some closure, but that's too far gone now. Story 33, it was absolutely horrible at first. I legit thought my life was ending as shortly after that she wanted to take a break. Pretty much she wanted to date her coworker at Baker Square, and had a really weird cultish relationship with all her coworkers. At first I was confused, upset, all of the above. But weirdly enough, one of her friends' acquaintance from me contacted me since she knew I was in a rough patch, completely innocently, and we hung out, and she even knew that I wanted to get back together with her at some point, so it wasn't anything immediate. Eventually, the girl I proposed to found out her coworker boy toy was A and wanted to get back together with me. And obviously I'd been fretting about it for like 3 months, so I instantly said yes, even though unknowingly I started forming a bond with a friendly acquaintance. Slowly, things just started deteriorating as I started getting honestly kind of suspicious that she wanted to get together with one of her other coworkers. And surprisingly, I was actually right. She ended up breaking up with me again, and I thought I was going to go through it all again, but this time the shock only lasted a few days. Since this time, I kind of had closure. Meanwhile, somehow, I think the friendly acquaintance current girlfriend of 4 years knew that this was going to happen and was there for me when I needed it. Like both times for me, it was super rough. Couldn't even function, got together, and honestly, I can't even understand how I thought I was happy with my old girlfriend who I proposed to. I even looked back, and in realizing that even her family was up. Her mom was extremely controlling and even disgustingly bragged about how she dated a boy in high school for a few years and broke up with him and hurt his feelings so bad that he moved for mental health reasons. Like, I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree. To be quite honest, though, I miss her dad a lot. Like, honestly, he messages me every once in a while. I doubt his daughter knows. And basically, I can just hear it in his voice that he would rather her date me than her new boyfriend since I had a pretty good bond with him. Even so, I still don't like to message back with anything too much since I somehow weirdly feel like it's cheating on my current girlfriend who has the most chill parents I've ever met. And are super easygoing. I honestly think my life would have been if I chose to marry my past girlfriend with a mom-in-law problem. Anyways, that's my story. Thanks for reading. Story 34, I proposed to my husband several times before he did. I know this question was specifically targeting hetero males, but this applies. He stated he wanted to marry me, but not right away. We were together almost 5 years before he said yes. I wasn't going to give up on this man. Story 35, depression and suicide attempt 10 times. We both really liked each other until I heard a lot of text messages from a stranger saying, "When do you want to meet up next day?" I proposed, and she said, "No, I've already got someone else." She walked away, and I've never been the same person. Story 36, it had been 5 years. Things had gotten a bit rocky. With both worked the same incredibly time-demanding job, and it had kept us apart. Despite living together for the better part of 2 years, the promise of a 6-figure salary made it hard to let go of and do the right thing, and I proposed in a last-ditch effort to save the relationship. I'll never forget that moment. At that moment, she looked at me, roses on the floor, ring in hand, and with cold eyes, filled with sadness and a sprinkle of pity, just said no. She left for a coworker that I had hired a year before, a man 20 years older than either of us. And as a person, I shattered. Up until this point, society, family, friends had all reinforced that I was living life the way it should be lived: financial security, wealth above my needs, a long-term relationship. We were getting a house. In an instant, all that came crashing down around me. What followed after was the single most devastating time of my life. I couldn't work. They were there. I tried, but got pulled off the job. Never happens on the railroad. They will literally work you to death by another supervisor and sent to get checked at the hospital. They took me off on stress leave. Within a month, I had stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped doing literally anything, didn't answer the phone. Just laid there on the couch with Netflix endlessly streaming. I don't even know what. Eventually, some friends who hadn't seen or heard from me in some time came to check on me. I must have been in rough shape. Half the house was destroyed. My hands were just a bleeding mess from smashing things. I think there were still bits of that lovely IKEA particle board stuck in my knuckles here and there. They took me to a hospital. Intake upgraded me to critical care. That was full, so I had to stay the night in a secure waiting room. The next day, a doctor met with me, asked me some questions. He said, "In the 13 years I've worked here, you're the most suicidal person I've ever met. I'm honestly surprised you're alive. We'll never forget that. I'd never even thought of myself as a suicidal person before. I couldn't help but think dying would be easier than living through what I was feeling. They put me in a psych ward for 3 months. No outside privileges, a merry-go-round of different medications to try and help change my mood. I had no contact with the outside. I wanted it that way. I shut down social media and shut off the phone. I didn't want the friends and family who were so proud of me to see what I had become, a miserable, hollow shadow of my former self. The only person I called was her. I asked her to come get me. She never came. It's hard to say what happened next. Eventually, the friends who had taken me to the hospital were allowed to see me and visited from time to time. I don't remember moving out of my house. I don't remember what happened to all of my belongings. I don't remember being 28 years old. I have a picture of a birthday somewhere, but no recollection of it. I spent the next year on a lot of prescription drugs that destroyed my memory. Eventually, one day, I woke up in a bed, in a strange room, in a strange house. I walked out the door to a dining room where there were no less than 7 Bibles on the table. It scared me. I had no idea where I was. There were keys to a truck parked outside on the table in my bedroom, next to what was certainly my computer. A woman stopped by. Nursing student, beautiful, talented, caring. She was there to see me, and to my surprise, we were dating. Had been for a time, it would seem, but that was strange for me. I had known her before all of this, but never in this context, and the relationship felt weird and unnatural. The medication had run out, and I was coming out of it, starting to be more present again. Apparently, the friend who brought me to the hospital was there when I was discharged and took me with him to his church. I had no place to live, and they set me up with one of their members and had paid 2 months' rent for me to stay there. I've never been religious like that in my adult life, and this was strange to me, but at least I wasn't homeless. I just woke up one day with a new life and had to accept that that was the case. And so, like Mario, I started the game over again. I would go on to help the same friend who took me to the hospital through his divorce and to buy a house that we both lived in. The girl and I amicably parted ways a few months later. I started volunteering and went back to school, officially resigned from the railroad. Some of the people I left behind when I cut all ties with that relationship, I still haven't spoken to again since that day. Now I'm sitting here, 6 years later, attempting to create podcasts where people have a safe space in their lives to talk about their struggles and reduce the stigma surrounding them, and launching a Facebook group and YouTube channel aimed at helping people achieve holistic wellness and self-discovery. That's the whole story. And probably the first time I've shared it. This got way more attention than I was expecting. I'm going to attempt to answer the questions below. I've never received so many, so I'll do my best. Thank you for your support and the silver and hugs, but most importantly for listening. Sometimes it's very strange to think you've gone through something so unbelievable in your life. Story 37, as a woman who was engaged and the proposal was later revoked, it still stings a little 11 years later. When you're sure you're with the love of your life, losing them can really pop a hole in your life plans. Story 38, my mom and dad were not married and wanted a kid and had me. My dad, being Catholic and Hispanic, decided he wanted to be married to my mom and proposed. She said no because she hadn't been divorced from her first husband for very long and now had 3 young kids and preferred to stay not married. He threatened to leave her and got on his motorcycle and started to drive away until my mom chased him down and gave in, leading to what my parents called a voodoo wedding the same day. Story 39, I was in a relationship with her for 5 years. Living together for 1. She had an infant daughter from a previous relationship with a drug addict who popped up occasionally. We moved together because her mother stole her rent money for months. I was feeling depressed and lost my job. I was diagnosed with clinical depression later when I sought help. I told her I wanted to move back to my parents' house as I was going mad. She said if I did, it would be all over between us. I moved in a week later. I tried to reach her, and she had started a relationship with a biker she met while we were together. I went to her house and proposed. Got rejected. She had a hickey. It's been 5 years. She now has 2 more children. I started treatment for my depression, 3 more months to complete, moved to another city, and had a substantial boost on my salary. I'm feeling better than the last 15 years.